Change and stress, all right? Change and stress. Oftentimes they go together, and that's why Robbins and Coulter put it in the same chapter that I am speaking about right now. My name is Mike Knudstrup. I have an MBA and Ph.D. from Florida State University and economics and business degree from Kalamazoo College in Michigan. So what I'm going to speak about now are the three phases of change. The most common model, Kurt Lewins, unfreezing, changing, refreezing. Of course, the idea is that change causes stress. We'll talk about what stressors cause stress and when. Depends on your appraisal of the situation. Talk about stress and performance, problem and symptom-focused coping. You know how to cope with stress. And the ultimate goal is having a sense of resilience or hardiness. All right, the most common model of change is Kurt Lewins' model for change. There's three phases. Unfreezing. This is where people don't know even, perhaps, that something needs to be changed. There's a certain amount of inertia. And the idea of the idea for the manager is that they need to break them free. They need to unfreeze them before they consider change. If you've ever had a bad habit and someone else all of a sudden told you, hey, you need to change this, maybe it worked towards unfreezing you, or maybe you had something you didn't even know was a problem. First you had to be alerted and you had to sink in and unfreeze so you would consider changing. Once we change, oftentimes performance or our quality of life falls off. And that's what makes change hard. It's uncomfortable to change. Say, break a new habit, start exercising, learn some new technology, maybe a new computer, a new operating system, a new phone. So for a while you kind of have to weather the storm. Performance and quality of life falls off. Hopefully if the change is a good idea and you get good at it, then you start to refreeze. You need to refreeze the habits so you don't fall back and do things the way you used to. What do they say? It takes 30 to 60 days for a new habit to get going. If you're a manager, maybe refreezing is rewarding people for using that new computer system, or maybe having exemplars or guardians. Some people who are really good at it, who took to it well, and using them as examples. But I've scribbled over it quite a bit, but I superimposed the learning curve for change along with these three phases of a change effort. Learning curve for change is whenever you take on something new, there's a certain learning curve, all right? You kind of drop off for a while as you're learning it, and then once you work your way up the learning curve, things start to get better. Let's see, another way I've heard this termed is conscious incompetence. In the unfreezing phase, you're unconscious that you were incompetent. All of a sudden, someone alerts you, and you become consciously incompetent. Oh, I didn't know that. Now I do. Now I find out I'm not good at it. Once you start changing, you become consciously competent. You got to think about doing it the new way, the new habit, the new system. But it's not a habit. It's conscious, and you're competent. You're doing it the right way, but it's not a habit, and your performance or quality of life is not that good. Finally, if it's a good idea and it's working out, you become what? Unconsciously competent. You don't have to think about it. Maybe you've learned something new in a sport, how to hit a golf ball, or how to shoot a free throw, or whatever it might be. Unconscious competence means like it's automatic. It's muscle memory. All right, learning curve for change, three phases of a change effort. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, change causes stress, or it might anyway, but lots of things can cause stress. What it depends upon is your appraisal of the stressor. So stressor are things that cause stress, for example, like exam grades. All right? Grades cause stress. Sometimes people say family causes stress, or finances can cause stress. But the key is your appraisal of it. All right? Is it relevant to you? Is it potentially harmful, and do you have insufficient resources? Let's say you're reading this with final exams coming up. All right? Well, if you're a student, probably grades are relevant, but depending on your situation, they may be more or less harmful. You know, if you need a 4.0 to keep a scholarship, then definitely, you know, if you're on that borderline of not getting A, that can be harmful. If you're really rushed, you don't have a whole lot of time, then you have insufficient resources. But it depends. You know, if it's relevant, if it's harmful, and insufficient resources. You know, let's say you've got a big bill coming up for car insurance or something. Well, that's certainly relevant. Maybe it's harmful. No one likes paying those kind of bills. But if you've got $1 million in the bank, you got sufficient resources, you are not stressed like this guy right here. All right. So what are some symptoms of stress that people go through? Well, some have to do with maybe headaches, having trouble sleeping, your heart racing, you're sweating, your irritability, those kind of things. But the presence of the stressor is not enough. It's your appraisal, and then that leads to stress or no stress. Question to you here now. Is all stress bad? What do you think? I would tend to say no. All right. The relationship between stress and performance is what we might call here, oh, come on, curvilinear. All right. No stress, and people tend not to be motivated. Maybe they're happy. You know, they're just content. It takes a little bit of stress on the system to jar us into performance, into being motivated. However, too much stress, and then we fall back down, we get confused, overwhelmed, we struggle, and we can't perform. And in fact, I would argue to you, you have too much stress for too long a period of time, and you, well, get my spelling right here, you experience what's known as burnout. All right, you get burned out, you can't recover, you just have this general feeling of dis-ease and tiredness and a lack of motivation. You know, when you've had persistent periods of overstress, burnout is a problem. But too little stress is a problem too. You want the just right stress on your system to motivate you to perform. So what are some ways for managing stress? And this is a very busy slide, I understand. It's got symptom-focused coping and problem-focused coping. All right, symptom-focused coping just gets at the symptoms of stress. Okay, you deal with the symptoms today, they come back tomorrow. Doesn't mean it doesn't provide you any relief. You definitely get some relief, but it's short-term in nature. A lot of us have cathartic activities that help to burn stress off. Okay, I put some sports figures here, a lot of athletic activity. Exercise helps to burn stress off. A lot of people, cathartic activity is chewing, eating, talking. Relaxation techniques also tend to manage symptoms in the short term. Progressive relaxation. You look up progressive relaxation on Google or YouTube, you'll see all kinds of stuff. But different techniques, you tense your muscles, you feel tension building, and then you relax. Other people like techniques such as prayer and meditation and yoga. These help us to relax and to feel better and to cope on a symptom-focused basis. Another way of symptom-focused coping, or to avoid things that hurt our ability to cope, is avoid self-medication. Self-medication, any kind of chemicals that you use outside of a doctor's, I suppose, supervision. Amongst many people, drinking and alcohol or pills is an example of self-medicating. You want to avoid self-medicating. All it does is get you through the day, and then tomorrow you often have the same or worse problems. And finally, one of the biggest helps or aids to coping with stress is social support. Especially when things are going bad, having some social support can really pick us up. My own life, I've seen people who have struggled, and the unfortunate thing is when we're really struggling the worst, sometimes is when we isolate ourselves the most. So social support. All right, problem-focused coping gets at the source. So hopefully it's a little more long-term in nature. Not to diminish symptom-focused coping, but this is more short-term. Problem-focused coping hopefully is a little more long-term methods of coping with stress. One might just be negotiating changes. If you have family issues where are keeping you out of work, or you got to drop the kid off, or who knows what, negotiating changes with your boss or significant other people in your life can help you deal long-term with stress. Another one here, which I think particularly applies to our American rush lifestyle, is we allow ourselves to work through things. Okay? When we have losses, whether they be small or large, we need to give ourselves the gift of working through it slowly. Okay? If any kind of stressful situation or a loss, you need time. A woman named Elizabeth Kubler-Ross studied people and actually studied death and dying. And she found people go through stages when they have losses. One is first they're in denial, then they get upset, and then they try to bargain, maybe with God or something like that. Finally, they're getting close to accepting what has happened. They have sadness, and then finally acceptance is when they work through it all. But when you rush through a loss or a difficult transition, and you try to get right to acceptance, the problem is you backslide. You go back. You never really fully deal with it. You've got to be patient with yourself. And some societies are better than others, but for us, we're hurry-up society. Aren't you over with it yet? Come on, get on with your life, etc., etc. It takes time. If no one else will give you the permission to be patient and working through your loss, at least give it to yourself. Other examples are some societies, will allow a year of grieving after a loved one passes away. In America, we get 3 days bereavement, and then we're supposed to be back to work and full speed. Doesn't really work that way. All right. Finally, problem-focused coping method is cognitive restructuring, changing how we look at things. Okay, well, that's kind of a nice cartoon here. These guys, I thought, were showing cognitive restructuring. One saw a 6, the other saw a 9. But, we try to reframe or see differently what's going on. What's the saying in China? The symbol for crisis is also opportunity. The glass is not half empty, it's half full. Sometimes all you got to do with a stressful situation is see it differently. This too will pass. Cognitive structuring is changing our perspective about our stress, trying to look at it from another vantage point. What does not make us weaker, does not kill us, will make it stronger, maybe at the worst. So what's the point of this understanding stress and different coping strategies? Well, I would say it's a goal of resilience. We feel resilient. We can bounce back. Okay? When you're resilient, you have a general confidence and aptitude in your ability to cope with stress. You have a sense of hardiness and well-being. All right? I picked this picture as a symbol of strength. This is a woman who's dressed up like Rosie the Riveter. Rosie the Riveter was a woman who worked in the factories during World War II America. But Rosie was tough, And as you go along in your life and you have stressful situations and you work through them, you overcome them, and you learn different coping strategies, eventually you get a sense of resilience. You get a core inside you that you kind of know, well, the storms of life will push me around a little bit, but in the end, I will be all right. I have a sense of resilience that I'm going to be able to bounce back. And that comes with experience, I would say, working through challenging situations and also having some ways to effectively manage stress. So that finishes this segment on change and stress. We'll see you back for more at a later time.